My name is James Davies, and what I'm about to tell you isn't fiction. It's not one of those late-night creepypastas or urban legends. This is real. And if you're hearing this, it means I've finally decided the world deserves to know what really happened to Alex Vance, my best friend, my brother in everything but blood, and the man who vanished without a trace on October 5th, 2025. Everyone thinks he just ran away. That's the story the police told, the one his family accepted. The newspapers ran with it too. Local explorer disappears after burnout. They said he packed up his car and drove off into the night. It was easier to believe he chose to leave than to face what I know, because the truth is so much worse. It started when his parents finally let me into his room. They were hollowed out by grief. His mother couldn't even look at me. She just said, "If you find anything that explains it, please tell us." I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe a note, maybe a clue. But in one of his drawers, under a stack of old yearbooks, I found his old phone, the one he'd replaced months before. When I powered it on, it looked completely wiped, just a blank device, until I opened the system folders. That's when I found it. A hidden video file buried deep inside the cache directory. The name was gibberish, x_sys_10052025_1103.mp4. The date matched the day he disappeared. The file size, almost 20 gigabytes. I thought it was corrupted, but it wasn't. It played, and what it showed changed everything. The footage begins with Alex's voice, shaky but full of energy. He says the date, October 5th, 11:03 a.m., and calls it the big one. He's standing at the tree line near the old Hawthorne Industrial Plant, the one sealed off since the 1960s. He's wearing his usual exploration gear, hiking pack, respirator mask, a headlamp strapped to his forehead. Behind him, the fence is rusted and broken, almost swallowed by the forest. And then he says something that still makes my blood run cold. The fence is down. I'm going in. The Hawthorne plant isn't just another abandoned site. Around here, it's legend. A cursed place fenced off after a supposed chemical disaster in 1968. Locals whisper that birds don't fly there, that compasses spin in circles. Alex had been obsessed with it for years. He wasn't a thrill-seeker chasing clicks. He called himself a historian of lost things, an urban archaeologist. His YouTube channel, Witness to Ruin, had a small but loyal following. He treated every ruin like a time capsule. When he started researching Hawthorne, he found declassified documents, old blueprints with impossible geometries, and purchase orders for strange materials, mercury, bismuth, even quartz spheres the size of basketballs. He told me once that the plant wasn't a factory at all, but a cover, that something big had happened there. I laughed it off then, but when I saw that video file, I realized the ghosts he'd been chasing had been chasing him. I took the footage to the police. The detective watched for less than a minute before handing the phone back to me. He said, "Son, grief does strange things to people. Maybe you should talk to someone." But this wasn't grief. This was evidence, so I'm showing it here, to you, because you deserve to see what I saw, and maybe, when it's over, you'll tell me I'm not crazy. Before you hear the next part, remember this. Alex Vance wasn't the first person to vanish near the Hawthorne plant. And if what's in that video is real, he won't be the last. To understand what happened to Alex Vance, you have to understand Hawthorne. It isn't just another abandoned facility lost to time. It's a wound in the landscape, a place that doesn't want to be remembered. On paper, the Hawthorne Industrial Plant was built in 1952 by a company called Advanced Materials and Logistics. The name sounds harmless, like a manufacturer of jet fuel additives or cardboard boxes. But Alex discovered that AML wasn't harmless at all. In fact, it wasn't even real. He spent months digging through archives and obscure government databases, scanning old microfilm late into the night. What he found painted a different picture. AML was a front, a shell company hiding something secret, something that never officially existed. There were old shipping manifests that didn't match any known industrial purpose, shipments of bismuth, mercury and silver, all sent to Hawthorne in the early 1960s. He found blueprints too, floor plans of rooms with no doors or windows, circular chambers buried hundreds of feet underground, hallways that looped back into themselves on paper. Alex used to joke that the place was designed by someone who didn't believe in geometry. But beneath his humour, I could hear the unease growing. He told me, these aren't mistakes in the plans. They were deliberate. He believed that what happened in 1968 wasn't a chemical spill at all. He said it was an event. There was one heavily redacted report he'd found that described an energetic anomaly. No mention of chemicals, no mention of a containment breach, just a line that said, containment failure, non-localized event. When I asked him what that meant, he just said, it means something got out. Over time, stories started to surface from locals who lived near the fence line. Hunters said they heard a low vibration at night, a deep thrumming that made their teeth ache. Others swore they heard voices calling their names from the trees, sometimes even in their own voice. One man claimed he saw the air ripple like heat haze on a freezing morning. Most people dismissed it, but Alex didn't. He started collecting these stories, mapping them one by one. When he finished, he showed me the map, a perfect circle surrounding the plant. Whatever was inside, he said, was still active. He had a name for it, the sleeping machine. He said whatever they built there was never meant to be turned off, that it was waiting for someone to wake it up again. At first, I thought it was just obsession. He'd been lonely for months, spending too much time on the internet, chasing conspiracies. But then he showed me something I'll never forget. It was an old photograph, black and white, taken in 1967, a group of men in front of the main Hawthorne gate. They were smiling, wearing hard hats and AML badges, but behind them, the air looked wrong. There was a distortion, a blur right in the center of the frame, bending the light like a lens. Alex pointed to it and said, "That's not a camera defect. That's gravitational lensing." He was convinced that Hawthorne was some kind of energy research facility, one that experimented with resonance frequencies capable of bending reality itself. It sounded insane. But the more I looked at what he found, the harder it was to dismiss. Then there was the confession. A deathbed recording from a man claiming he'd been security chief at Hawthorne in 1968. He said the workers had been hearing a sound for weeks before the accident, a low hum that you could feel in your bones, and then one morning the sound stopped. In that silence, the sky turned white. People screamed that time was wrong, that the clocks were melting, that the hallways were shifting. And then, one by one, workers began to disappear. Not die, disappear. Their clothes and tools were left behind, but their bodies were gone. The man's last words before the tape cut off were simple. It opened, and it looked back. Alex sent me that recording 2 weeks before he vanished. At the time, I laughed it off. I told him he'd been watching too many conspiracy videos. But now, every time I replay his final footage, I hear that same hum under the static, a low, endless vibration, like the heartbeat of something buried beneath the earth. And I can't shake the feeling that when he walked through that broken fence, the thing inside Hawthorne recognized him. He thought he was exploring a ruin, but maybe the ruin was exploring him. The next part of the recording begins the same way it always does, with the sound of wind, faint static, and the shimmer of something unknown pressing against the microphone. It's Alex again. His voice is steady, but there's a tension beneath it, a nervous excitement. He's standing at the edge of the Hawthorne exclusion zone, just beyond the tree line. You can see the perimeter fence behind him, rusted and collapsing under the weight of decades. The warning signs hang by a single bolt, words faded to ghosts. He checks his camera, adjusts his harness, and steps forward. When his boot touches the ground inside the fence line, the world goes quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind, just the soft crackle of static. He comments on it, his tone uneasy, saying how even the most toxic exclusion zones still have sound. There should be life, even if it's small, but here, there's nothing. He laughs nervously, trying to shake it off, saying something about how it feels like everything's holding its breath. He walks deeper into the trees. The camera captures the undergrowth thinning until the concrete silhouette of the plant appears through the mist. Even through the low-resolution lens, it's immense, a brutalist fortress of steel and stone, rising like a scar from the forest floor. It doesn't look abandoned, it looks sealed. Alex moves closer. You can hear his breathing through the mask, shallow, quick. The fence is torn open in one place, the metal peeled outward. He steps through, brushes against it, and the whole section collapses into the dirt with a hollow clang. He mutters something about government maintenance, trying to sound casual, but his voice wavers. He's inside the Hawthorne plant now. The camera pans slowly, catching the outlines of crumbling structures. A loading dock, a rusted gantry, towers swallowed by vines. He walks carefully, narrating to himself as if making field notes. Every surface is coated in dust and moss, but there are no signs of human intrusion, no graffiti, no footprints, no wildlife. He stops at the first entrance, a heavy steel door torn open. The edges are bent outward as if something inside forced its way free. He runs his gloved fingers over the metal and pauses. The surface shimmers faintly, coated in something slick. He says it smells electric, like ozone after a storm. Then he steps through. Inside, the corridors are narrow and dark, lined with old control panels. The air feels heavy. His flashlight beam trembles against the walls. The sound of his footsteps echoes strangely, shallow, then flat, as if the space itself is swallowing the noise. He checks his instruments, temperature, radiation, air quality. Everything looks normal at first. Then the numbers start to drop. The temperature plummets from 21 degrees to 10 in less than a minute. He laughs again, uneasy, mumbling that it's probably ventilation. But there's no echo. His voice just dissolves into the dark. He calls out softly, testing the acoustics. Nothing answers. The word seems to vanish halfway through. Then, in the far end of the corridor, something shifts. It's subtle, a flicker, a shape, like a shadow moving where there shouldn't be one. He swings the camera toward it, but there's nothing there, just concrete and silence. He stands frozen for a few seconds, then whispers something under his breath. A note to himself, saying that if anyone finds this, it means he was right. The way he says it is different. It's quiet, resigned, like he's already accepted what's waiting for him. When I watch this part, I always notice the same thing, a faint vibration buried under the audio. It's not interference, it's too consistent, too pure. A low, subsonic hum pulsing at a steady rhythm. I ran it through a sound analyzer once. The tone measured 19 Hz, just below human hearing range. That frequency is known to cause dread, nausea, and hallucinations. Scientists call it the fear frequency. Whatever Alex walked into that day wasn't silent, it was singing. A sound too low for him to hear, but strong enough to reach inside his bones. And the deeper he went, the louder it became. That's where the third video ends, abruptly, without warning. But what comes next is where everything starts to unravel. Because in the next file, something begins to answer him back. The next segment of Alex's footage begins inside the plant itself. By now, his breathing has changed. It's heavier, shallow, the kind that comes when your body already knows something's wrong, even if your mind refuses to admit it. The camera shakes slightly as he moves down a corridor lined with thick concrete walls. There are no markings, no graffiti, no signs of human life. Just decades of decay, the kind that builds slowly, layer by layer, until everything looks fossilized. He whispers his observations to the camera, calling it Checkpoint Alpha, interior. He says the place feels untouched, preserved in time, and he's right. There's no dust disturbed by footsteps, no debris on the ground, nothing that says anyone's been here in 50 years. His flashlight passes over the walls, and something catches the light, a faint metallic sheen. He brushes it with his glove, and the dust clings to him like static. He murmurs that it feels charged. The deeper he goes, the stranger the architecture becomes. At first, the hallways run straight, clean lines leading deeper underground. Then, slowly, the angles start to warp. The walls curve, stretching in impossible ways. Corners that should meet at right angles bend like soft metal. He turns to check the way he came, and freezes. The entrance is gone, not hidden, gone. The corridor behind him has become a solid wall. He speaks to the camera, trying to steady his breathing, saying it must be an optical illusion, or maybe he turned around without realizing. But his voice trembles. Then the low hum returns, faint at first, like a vibration through the air. It deepens until the microphone begins to distort, rattling with pressure. He forces a laugh, pretending it's structural resonance. But his tone betrays him. He keeps walking forward. The walls begin to sweat, thin beads of moisture forming on the surface like condensation. He wipes one with his glove. It glistens like oil. A staircase appears ahead, narrow, steep, descending into darkness. He mutters that the original blueprints showed no sub-levels. Then he says something quiet to himself, a nervous joke about bonus content, and starts down. The concrete steps groan beneath his weight. Halfway down, his handheld monitor begins to click. Soft, irregular at first, then rhythmic, almost like a pulse. He checks the display. The readings climb steadily. Not radiation. Something else. The pattern of the spikes matches a heartbeat. He says, almost whispering, "That's impossible." At the bottom of the stairwell stands a massive door. It's smooth and black, seamless, with no hinges, handle, or visible frame. Just 5 shallow grooves forming a handprint. He runs his glove over it, saying it feels warm. He hesitates, then places his hand against it. The surface ripples under his touch, and the grooves glow faintly blue. The door retracts upward into the ceiling without a sound. Beyond it lies a chamber. It's vast, circular, almost cathedral-like, walls lined with crystalline growths that pulse with faint light. At the center stands a colossal black pillar wrapped in cables and surrounded by rings embedded in the floor. The design is alien, geometric and organic all at once. He whispers that it's beautiful. As he moves closer, his instruments begin to scream, readings fluctuating, lights flashing. He lowers the device, staring upward. The hum grows stronger until it fills the space like pressure inside the skull. He says quietly, "This isn't a reactor. This isn't human." The crystals brighten. The hum rises, becoming layered, no longer mechanical, but almost alive. The camera image trembles with interference, pixels warping under invisible stress. Then, something moves across the wall. A shadow, thin, tall, gliding silently past the beam of his light. He spins toward it, but the space is empty. The only movement is the faint shimmer of the crystals, pulsing like veins. He tells himself it's a trick of the light, but his breathing betrays the truth. He steps closer to the pillar. The sound changes pitch, forming a rhythm. Slow, deep, deliberate. He reaches out toward it, and the camera flickers. For a single frame, the surface of the pillar isn't solid, it's translucent. Behind it, something vast stirs. Alex stumbles back. The light shakes, catching a glimpse of the wall beyond. The geometry ripples again, as if the entire chamber is breathing. He whispers, barely audible, "It's awake." And then, silence. No hum, no static, no sound at all. The file ends there, abruptly. Every time I watch that moment, I feel the same thing. The instant when silence isn't absence, but attention, like something vast has turned its focus toward you. And from that point on, the recordings stop being exploration, they become contact. After I found Alex's video, I told myself I wouldn't watch it again, but that was a lie. I've watched it dozens of times now, frame by frame, moment by moment, searching for something I must have missed. And each time I notice something new, something that shouldn't be there. At first, I thought it was a glitch, the kind of distortion you get from cheap phone hardware trying to capture too much light. But it wasn't visual, it was sound. That low, pulsing hum that began the moment Alex crossed the fence line. It never stops. Even when the video ends, the tone lingers. When I shut the phone off, I can still hear it like a faint vibration inside the walls. So I did what Alex would have done. I started analysing. I exported the audio track and ran it through a spectral analyzer, the same kind of software he used for his field work. And that's when I found it. Below the normal hearing range, buried deep in the waveform, was a pure 19 Hz tone. No variation, no environmental influence. A perfect sine wave. It wasn't background noise, it wasn't camera interference, it was a signal. Most people don't realize what infrasound, those frequencies below 20 Hz, can do to the human body. It can make your vision blur. It can fill your chest with pressure. It can trigger fear, nausea, panic, even hallucinations. That's why scientists call it the fear frequency. But what I found in Alex's footage wasn't natural resonance. It wasn't caused by machinery or air movement. It was deliberate, engineered. The tone pulsed rhythmically, 4 distinct beats repeating endlessly. Like a pattern, like breathing. When I isolated it, boosted the gain and filtered out everything else, I expected mechanical noise. Instead, I heard something disturbingly organic, slow, rhythmic, like air moving through lungs too large to exist. I told myself it was just pareidolia, my brain assigning meaning to chaos. But when I graphed the peaks, the intervals weren't random. They repeated in precise order. 4 notes, always the same 4. It wasn't just a sound, it was a code. I compared it against every known signal database I could find. Seismic activity, oceanic resonance, even electromagnetic pulses from satellites. Nothing matched. It wasn't geological, it wasn't atmospheric, it wasn't human. And when I listened again, really listened, I realized what Alex meant in his last message. When he whispered, "It's awake," he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was describing the sound itself. The Hawthorne plant wasn't built around a reactor, it was built around this, a frequency that thinks. The first time I heard it clearly, it was through headphones. The room was silent. But halfway through playback, the lights flickered. The monitor flickered too. And for a split second, I saw something reflected in the black glass, a shimmer, faint, like a shape just behind me. I turned around, but there was nothing there, just that lingering vibration in my chest, deep enough to feel but not to hear. I ran more tests, but each time I played the sound, it seemed to change. Slightly. The waveform grew denser, more complex. It was learning. I tried muting it, closing the file. But even then, I could still feel it, humming faintly through the floor, through the air. That's when I realized what the file name meant. X_sys_10052025_1103. The sys wasn't random. It wasn't just a file. It was a system. Whatever came through that day, whatever Alex recorded, it wasn't trapped in the footage. It was embedded in it, alive inside the data. And now, every time I play the recording, I can feel it watching. Not through sight, but through sound. A low, patient rhythm, waiting for someone to listen long enough. The next part of Alex's footage is the one I avoided watching for the longest time. Even now, every time I press play, I feel my stomach twist, like my body knows what's coming before my mind does. The video begins inside the same chamber as before. The central pillar still stands there, black and motionless, surrounded by those concentric rings carved into the floor. But something's different. When Alex first entered, the crystals lining the walls glowed faintly blue, pulsing like a heartbeat. Now they flicker erratically, each one flashing out of rhythm, as if the entire room is struggling to stay synchronized. The air looks thick, distorted. Not fog, not dust, but something else, like heat shimmer in freezing air. Alex's voice trembles slightly as he speaks. He says the readings are unstable, that the magnetic field has shifted, though he can't explain why. He moves closer to the pillar. The closer he gets, the more the camera struggles to focus. The image shakes, then bends, like the light itself is bending around the object. He says the temperature has dropped again. You can hear his breath fogging the mask. The hum grows louder, no longer background noise, but pressure, vibrating through the microphone like a living pulse. He checks the Geiger counter on his wrist. The numbers are meaningless, not radiation, but energy spikes pulsing in rhythm with the sound. He murmurs that the readings look alive, then the noise changes. A second layer emerges beneath the hum, a slow, dragging sound, wet and rhythmic, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Alex freezes. He turns the camera toward the sound. At first, there's nothing, just the crystal-coated walls, flickering softly. Then, for a brief second, the light catches movement. Something thin and dark slips behind a column, gone before the focus can adjust. He whispers to himself that it must have been a trick of light, but the camera trembles in his hand. He pans across the floor, and that's when you see it. A thin layer of ash scattered in uneven piles. It looks like dust until some of it starts to shift. It's moving, flowing toward the center of the room in slow spirals, drawn to the pillar as if by invisible gravity. He backs up quickly, muttering that the air pressure is changing. The ash begins to rise, caught in unseen currents, twisting into rings around the base of the structure. Each movement syncs with the hum. He says, barely above a whisper, that it's responding to sound, that the room is reacting to him. Then, abruptly, every crystal in the chamber flares at once, a blinding cold blue. The hum stops. For a heartbeat, the silence is complete. Then the black surface of the pillar ripples. It's subtle at first, a shimmer, like water stirred by wind. Then it changes texture. The smooth metallic finish softens, almost melting, revealing something beneath, a surface that looks organic, almost like skin. Alex steps closer. The camera tilts upward. The ripples spread across the column, and behind that thin layer of movement, you can see something inside. It shifts slowly, like a shadow trapped in glass. He takes another step. The phone's light catches it, just enough to reveal form. A shape unfurls behind the translucent surface, long, coiled, massive, moving as though it's breathing. Alex's voice breaks. He says he thinks the pillar isn't a structure at all, that it's a containment vessel. He whispers, "It's a door." Then the crystals on the walls begin to vibrate. The hum returns, louder than before, but this time it carries a melody, not random, not noise. 4 notes. The same 4 I found in the waveform. The floor trembles. The ash spirals faster. The air fills with pressure, and the light in the chamber becomes blinding. Alex tries to move toward the exit, but when he turns, the doorway is gone, sealed again, smooth and unbroken. His breathing quickens. He stumbles backward, shouting that the door closed on its own. The camera distorts violently. Static, light flares, the picture fracturing in streaks of white. When the image clears, Alex is on the ground, facing the pillar. The hum deepens, so low it shakes the microphone. The rippling surface splits down the middle. And though the footage is grainy, though the light is near blinding, you can still see the impossible. A faint outline. A form unfolding from within. He says one last thing before the feed cuts to static. His voice is barely a whisper. It's awake. And then silence. That's where the file ends, but not the sound. Even after closing the video, the hum lingers, faint but undeniable, like the recording isn't finished playing. The footage after that moment is chaos. Even calling it a video feels wrong. It looks like reality itself is being recorded through a broken mirror. Alex is running. The camera shakes violently, light streaking through the frame as he moves through the corridors. His breathing dominates the audio, quick, panicked, muffled through the respirator. The walls around him stretch and ripple as he passes like reflections in water. Sometimes they pulse, folding inward and out again, as if the building is breathing. He shouts something. I can't make out the words, but the audio fragments cutting in and out as though the air itself is disrupting the signal. He stops suddenly, pressing his back to the wall. The flashlight beam swings wildly, cutting through layers of dust and distortion. For a few seconds, nothing moves. Then, from somewhere behind him, comes a sound. A deep, metallic thud, followed by another, and another. Rhythmic, like footsteps, but too heavy, too measured. He points the light down the corridor. At the far end, something shifts. A silhouette moves between the flickers of light, tall, elongated, gliding rather than walking. Alex whispers that something is in there with him. You can hear the disbelief in his voice, the moment curiosity gives way to terror. The hum returns, stronger than ever, vibrating through every surface until even the camera begins to shudder. Dust lifts from the floor, suspended in the air like it's weightless. He says, "It's in the air." And he's right. The distortion isn't behind him or in front of him. It's around him. The space itself is moving. He starts to back away. The camera catches a flicker, something long and serpentine sliding across the far wall. It's translucent, like smoke, but with mass and movement. Wherever it passes, the concrete bends inward, leaving faint, rippling impressions. The next few seconds are pure panic. Alex runs. The light jerks and bounces, catching glimpses of shifting geometry, stairwells that fold sideways, corridors that double back on themselves. The hum changes pitch, rising higher, faster, until it sounds almost like a heartbeat. Every pulse makes the air tremble. Every note bends the light. He turns a corner and stops abruptly. The hallway ahead is gone. In its place is darkness, not shadow, but a void. The walls simply end. He stumbles back, gasping, realizing that the building isn't collapsing, it's unraveling. He lifts the camera. The lens flickers, and for one brief instant, the void ripples. Something moves within it. For a fraction of a second, you can see what's inside. Not a creature in the way we understand it, but an absence shaped like one. A spine made of light. A body that flickers in and out of visibility. The suggestion of wings. Alex murmurs that it's learning the space, adapting to it. That the hum isn't just sound. It's language. He takes a step backward. The moment he does, the sound shifts again. 4 distinct tones played in perfect sequence. The same pattern embedded in the earlier recordings. The same pulse that's been resonating beneath every piece of audio since the start. The air grows heavier. His breathing becomes ragged. He says it feels like gravity is tilting. The camera tilts too. For a second, it looks like he's climbing uphill, but he's not. The floor is shifting beneath him, bending into a slope that wasn't there before. The dust rises, the walls flex, and the sound builds into a single sustained note, so low it's more felt than heard. Then, suddenly, the hum cuts off. Everything stops. Even the motion blur freezes mid-frame. For a few seconds, the video doesn't move, but the timestamp keeps counting. 18 full seconds pass in silence. Then the footage stutters and resumes. Alex is gone from the frame. All that remains is the corridor, trembling faintly, as if recovering from pressure. Then his voice returns, distant, echoing through the hall. He says he's on a lower level now, that it's still following him. The camera turns, revealing a massive tunnel lined with pipes. The water dripping from the ceiling isn't falling, it's rising, pulled upward into the air. He whispers that the creature isn't chasing him anymore, it's changing the space around him, bending gravity, folding reality inward. He says it's warping everything, it's bending time. Then, faintly, the same 4 notes return, slow, rhythmic, almost gentle. He lowers his voice, barely audible. He says, "It's learning." The feed glitches, the light flickers, and the last thing visible before the file cuts to static is the central pillar again, no longer fixed in place. It's moving, sliding slowly through the tunnel like a living thing. The recording ends there. When I finally forced myself to watch the rest of the footage, I realized I wasn't just watching a recording anymore. I was watching a system react. The image flickers and jumps like corrupted data, lines of static running across the frame, colors bleeding through each other, and beneath it all that same pulsing hum, 4 notes, looping in perfect sequence. At first, I thought it was interference, but the pattern was too precise, too intentional. Alex's camera captures the inside of the tunnel, the place where the walls had started to ripple and the air bent like glass. Through the distortion, something begins to move, not in front of the camera, but inside the distortion itself. It looks fluid, as though light has been trapped and forced to flow like water. Every time the hum pulses, the shape flickers, long, coiling movements, a pattern of scales that flash and vanish before the lens can focus. And then the sound peaks, a deep, resonant vibration that shakes the frame. The tunnel bends inward, the concrete stretches, folds, and then tears. From that tear, something emerges. You never see it fully, the light can't decide what it's looking at, but for an instant, the silhouette becomes clear. A vast, elongated form built from shadow and fire. A body of smoke and glass and living energy. Alex says something I'll never forget. He says it's not coming through the wall. It is the wall, the barrier between worlds, bending, reshaping, manifesting. The hum deepens again, almost melodic, and for a heartbeat, the pattern stops sounding random. It sounds like language. Later, when I slowed the audio to 1 frame per second and stretched the waveform, I heard it clearly. The pulse wasn't just sound, it was structured, mathematical intervals repeating perfectly, not chaos, but communication. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't even a creature in the way we understand it. It was a presence, aware, deliberate, vast. Alex turns the camera toward the wall. The distortion brightens into white light, and behind it, you can see motion, massive, fluid, constant. The air trembles, the light itself seems to breathe. He whispers that it's alive, that it's breathing in rhythm with the sound. And he's right. The footage slows, as though time inside the room is dragging. Each pulse of the hum coincides with a visible movement in the light, like lungs expanding and contracting, slow and steady. Then comes the voice. At first, it's buried beneath the distortion, a vibration too low to hear, but you can feel it in your chest. When I isolated it later, there were harmonics layered on top of the hum, multiple frequencies forming chords that shouldn't exist. And when slowed down, they weren't random. They were words. 3 of them. We are remembered, that's what it says. Over and over, not shouted, not whispered, just existing in the air like a prayer. Alex panics. He starts backing away, saying it's impossible, that it's just energy feedback or resonance. But the voice follows him. Every time he speaks, the hum adjusts, mimicking his rhythm, syncing to his tone. He stumbles, drops the camera, and for a few seconds, all you see is the floor. Ash swirling in perfect circles, drawn toward the light. When the image tilts back up, the tunnel is gone. In its place is an open space filled with light, blinding white and blue, flickering in waves. Something vast moves within it, coiled and endless. A long neck, a body of glowing patterns, a head crowned with flowing arcs of energy, but no eyes, no mouth, just a void that shifts like water. Alex whispers that it's not alive in the biological sense. It's made of resonance, of sound turned into form, a being built entirely from vibration. He says it's a door and it's remembering how to open. Then the camera begins to melt, pixels burning into streaks of light, sound rising until the microphone collapses under the pressure. The hum becomes a roar, and then silence. When the image returns, everything is distorted beyond recognition. The corridor, the walls, the light, all merged into a single mass of motion. The creature is nowhere to be seen, but in the center of the frame, the pillar remains. Only now it's not inert. It's pulsing, glowing with the same rhythm as the hum. That's when I understood what Hawthorne was. It wasn't a factory, it wasn't a lab, it was a bridge, a machine built to create resonance strong enough to tear a hole in reality. And whatever Alex found down there wasn't created by it. It was invited through it. He called it a door, but doors work both ways. There's a point in every recording where the mind stops trying to explain what it's seeing. That's where the footage goes next. It's the moment when reason gives up. When the video resumes, the color is wrong. The world inside the frame looks inverted, light bleeding into shadow, shadow glowing faintly from within. The image ripples, as if filmed through water. In the middle of it all stands Alex. He's still holding the camera, but it's like gravity has forgotten him. He's standing, yet floating, motionless in a room that won't stop moving. The walls pulse outward, stretching like membranes, then contract again with a faint shimmer of blue light. The hum is everywhere now. It fills the speakers, shaking the audio so badly that the microphone struggles to hold on. But beneath it, there's something else, a voice. It's buried deep in the noise, but it's there. Multiple tones, speaking as one. The pattern is steady, deliberate, layered in frequencies that don't exist on any human register. I slowed it down later. When I did, I could hear the words. 3 of them. We are remembered. It repeats again and again, perfectly synced to the 4 infrasound notes that have haunted every part of this story. It isn't a threat. It sounds like a statement, or maybe a ritual. Alex raises his camera toward the wall. The black column in the center of the room splits open down the middle. Light pours through the seam. Not white, not blue, but something in between, like the color of heat just before it burns. The air bends around it, distorting like liquid glass. He says something. I can't tell if he's whispering or shouting. The sound collapses halfway through, swallowed by the resonance. The column expands, revealing the storm inside. It's not fire, it's not plasma, it's movement without direction. A shape constantly rewriting itself, shifting from form to form faster than the camera can process. It feels alive, aware, and it's looking back. The hum rises again, so deep it's almost inaudible. Alex steps backward, shielding his face. The light intensifies until it bleeds through the frame, flooding the image in white. For a brief instant, just before it flares out completely, something steps forward from the light. A silhouette, long, sinuous, coiled in motion. A shape like a serpent, but made of energy, its surface flowing with reflections like molten glass. No eyes, no mouth, just a void that pulses with sound. And then the roar. It's not a scream, it's a vibration, a low, resonant tone that hits with physical force, distorting everything it touches. The walls ripple like waves. The air fractures into fragments of light. Alex falls to his knees. He says, "I opened it." His voice is barely a whisper, then louder. "Oh God, I opened it." The floor breaks apart. The walls dissolve into darkness. The light expands until there's nothing left but the outline of the creature, suspended in white, wings unfurling like smoke. And then the video cuts. For several seconds, there's only static. Then, faintly, the recording resumes, darker, quieter. The camera lies on its side. Ash drifts past the lens, glowing faintly blue. Somewhere in the distance, Alex calls my name. Once. Then again. The second time, another voice answers. It's my name again. Same tone, same pitch, but not his voice. It's artificial, digital, the same resonance that's been hiding beneath the sound all along. I isolated that section. The waveform didn't match human speech. It was made of layered frequencies that couldn't be produced by a throat, only by vibration itself. Whatever spoke my name wasn't human. It was the hum speaking through him. The final seconds of the file are almost unwatchable. Colors bleed into static. The sound builds into a storm of overlapping frequencies. And in the chaos, Alex screams one last time. Then, another voice, deeper, impossible, whispers a single word. Open. The light swells to pure white. The audio peaks and cuts out, and the video ends. When I tried to replay the file, it was gone. The device reset itself. In its place was a single text document, one line of code, synchronization complete. That's when I understood. The signal hadn't stopped. It had transferred. Whatever was in that chamber, whatever had crossed through that rift, it wasn't trapped anymore. It was inside the recording, and now it was inside the system that played it. The door didn't close, it uploaded. When the video vanished, I thought it was a glitch. Maybe the phone had corrupted. Maybe I'd watched it too many times. Some technical failure I could explain. But deep down, I knew better. I didn't delete it. It deleted itself. In its place was a single file, one line of code, plain and silent. Synchronization complete. I sat there staring at those words, the hum still echoing faintly in my ears. Because if synchronization means what it sounds like, if whatever came through that rift managed to merge itself with the recording, then it isn't trapped underground anymore. It's inside the data, inside every copy, every replay. I tried to fight the thought, told myself I was imagining it, but the sound didn't stop. It was still there, under the floor, inside the walls, humming faintly through the circuits of my computer. I took the phone to a friend, an engineer who used to work in communications for classified projects. He examined it for hours, silent, barely breathing. When he finally looked up, he said, "This isn't storage data. It's transmission." He showed me the metadata. During the entire time Alex recorded that footage, the phone had been broadcasting, not uploading, transmitting, a continuous stream, bouncing through satellites, through every network it could find, repeating a single address, Hawthorne_//return.0x0, a protocol that doesn't exist, at least not here. He told me to destroy the phone, said that whatever it was sending, it might still be active, but when he tried to pull the data, his computer crashed. The screen flickered white, then the speaker started humming, the same 4 tones, low, measured, alive. He yanked the power cord out. When the sound stopped, he looked pale, hollow. He said, "James, whatever this is, don't bring it here again." 2 days later, I got a call from an unlisted number. A man's voice, calm, professional, said he was from the Department of Energy. He wanted to ask about a restricted transmission event linked to a personal device. I hung up. When I got home that night, my apartment door was open. Nothing was stolen, but the phone was gone. So was my hard drive. They took everything, and yet the hum stayed. Now it's everywhere. Sometimes faint, sometimes so strong it vibrates the glass in the windows. At night, when the house is quiet, I can hear whispers beneath it. They say my name. Not ghostly, not human either. Patterned, measured, like a machine learning how to speak. I stopped sleeping weeks ago. Every time I close my eyes, I see that light again. The same impossible colour that poured through the rift. And somewhere inside it, something moves. Coiled, breathing, watching. I think Alex was right. The Hawthorne plant wasn't a lab. It was a lock, a prison meant to hold something that should never have been remembered. And now, the door is open again. You can call me paranoid. You can say grief broke my mind. But the truth is simpler than that. Because 3 days ago, the exclusion zone at Hawthorne lit up on satellite imaging. A single pulse, bright, circular and rhythmic. Exactly where Alex vanished. The official report says it was a brush fire, but fires don't burn in perfect circles, and they don't flicker in time with an audio frequency. When I ran the data through an audio converter, it produced the same pattern, 4 notes, the same signal, still broadcasting. So maybe the door never closed. Maybe it never could. Maybe all Hawthorne ever did was slow it down, delay the next opening, and now it's searching again, looking for another key, another frequency. You might think this is just a story. You might even feel safe turning this off, going back to your life. But if you've listened closely, if you've felt that faint vibration under my voice, then you already know the truth. Because it can hear you too. And once you've heard it, you're part of it. It started with Alex, then it moved through me, and now it's in you. You hear that hum, don't you?